What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video. This week we're going to be going over weeks 12 and 13 at ATP Flight School. These are the first 2 weeks of my instrument training after getting my private pilot license. In this video, we're going to discuss everything from how many flights I did during those 2 weeks, what kinds of flights we were doing, the types of instructors I was flying with, as well as my overall thoughts and feelings during those first 2 weeks of my instrument training. Now, a disclaimer again for those of you who are curious. As of today, when I'm filming this video, I'm actually endorsed to take my instrument check ride, so I'm just waiting to take my check ride. So I'm talking in previous tense. I'm going to be talking about what happened about a month ago during those first 2 weeks of my instrument training. I'm trying to get caught up on these weekly updates so they can actually be current updates. But nonetheless, I hope you get value out of these videos and enjoy watching. Again, I have links in the description to all the pilot products and gear that I use. So if you're a current student or are looking into ATP Flight School, go ahead and click on any of those. I would appreciate it. That would help me out a lot as well. Now, as far as weeks 1 and 2 of instrument training, or weeks 12 and 13 at ATP Flight School, I flew about 5 times in my first week of instrument training, and then I flew 1 time the second week. So every single flight, when you start out your instrument training, at least at ATP Flight School, we're all doing, it's just cross-country flights where we practice instrument approaches during those flights, as well as holding procedures and tasks, everything like that. The reason why these flights have to be cross-country, meaning you have to fly to another airport at least 50 nautical miles away and do a landing, I believe that's the definition of it, is because in order to receive your instrument rating under a Part 61 school, you need to have 50 hours of cross-country PIC time, meaning pilot in command. So the way you can earn that pilot in command time, even though there's an instructor sitting in the right seat, is you take off and you put on foggles or a view limiting device that is simulating being in the clouds or being in instrument meteorological conditions. So you are manipulating the controls, you're solely by reference to your instruments, and then the instructor is either a CFII or they're a safety pilot, so you can both log PIC time. Anyway, so you do these cross-country flights and you're practicing instrument approaches and holds while you're doing those flights, and to be honest, it was very overwhelming. It felt like I had started over from the beginning because everything in your instrument training is completely different from everything you were doing in your private pilot training. When you're doing your private pilot training, you're just working on maneuvers, learning how to fly the airplane from point A to point B, and learning airspace and general rules. Now, instrument training, you're actually learning how the airspace system works and how it works when you're at an airline. The whole goal of your instrument training, if you didn't know already, is it allows you to fly in clouds. So if, say for example, once you get your instrument rating, there's a cloud level that's 1,000 feet above the ground, you can take off and you can go fly from point A to point B without being able to see the ground for 90% of your flight. And you can fly from wherever, Utah to California, just by referencing your instruments and communicating with air traffic control and using your GPS and navigational instruments. On top of those flights that we were doing, we did the 5 flights in the first week. We were also trying to do a simulator session that was 2 hours every single day. So we're doing these simulator sessions, and we're also flying. So it didn't seem like there was a whole ton of time to study outside of these sim sessions and these flights. So that's why during week 2, or week 13, whatever way you want to look at it, we only did that 1 flight. Half of that is because my instructor went out of town. We'd used up all of our flight time for that allotted section of the program outline, but I still had some simulator sessions that needed to be done. But since my instructor was out of town, none of the other instructors really wanted to pick up the sim time because then they're not getting flight hours and they don't get paid that much for it. To be honest, I didn't really mind at all because I needed to study. I felt like I was flying and doing things, but there was a whole lot I needed to study before I could do my instrument progress eval, which happened in 14. I'll talk about that in the next video. So yeah, I was super overwhelmed, but honestly, I think that's a good thing. I think that means you're trying to learn a lot and you're progressing at a fast pace. If you're progressing slowly, you probably wouldn't really feel overwhelmed, and that's what I signed up for, was to learn very quickly and at a fast pace. It may not be for everyone, but at this point in the program at ATP, you should be getting an idea whether it's going to be for you or whether it's not for you. Now, as far as any other thoughts I had about these first 2 weeks, and when it comes to instrument training in general, I think it's really cool learning about how instrument flying works, but the flights themselves are not super fun because you have to wear those foggles that are uncomfortable and that they just limit your view to your instruments. So you don't really get to see, I'm flying in Utah, so I don't really get to see the mountains or anything like that. So it kind of gets annoying just having to look at the instruments. But I get it, that's the way it is, and that's the way you should train. One day when you're in clouds, that's all you're gonna have, and I'm sure it's a much crazier experience when you're actually in clouds. Something else that I should mention is you also need to be studying for your IRA written exam. I completed my IRA written exam before I even started the program at ATP, so I didn't have to worry about that. But most students don't complete it before the program, so when they get into instrument training, that's just another thing that they have to add onto their list. They get super stressful. So again, if you haven't started your program, finish the written test before. It totally takes a weight off your shoulders. I've noticed for me, it's freed up a lot more time to actually study and learn and not just have to memorize the questions and get those tests out of the way. Now, if you didn't complete your IRA written exam before the program started, once you begin your instrument training, you are also going to have to do online ground school classes on Zoom almost every single day, which when you add those classes on top of studying for your written test, on top of flying, on top of your simulator sessions, it gets really intense. So if you can get that instrument written test done before you start the program, I promise it'll make the program feel a lot less stressful. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for watching. Again, I have links in the description for all the pilot products and gear you need if you're starting flight school or if you're already a flight school student. If you have any questions, just send them my way, and safe flying.